As if tomorrow all the things were gone I worked for all my life. I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my God above for living here today. The flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Good evening, guys, and welcome to Citizen Watch, where your voice matters. So tonight we have our second roundtable discussion, and we have some quite the guests with us. I want to introduce them, and if we can bring them up, there they come. So we've got Kimberly Brooks. If you'll just wave and say hi, she's my chief of staff. We've got Alex Walker. We've got Courtney Parador, Teresa Rayborn, Mark Flagel, Chad Graham, and Chaplain Ben Madigan. Hi, guys. How are you?
Fine. Good.
Doing
well.
great.
Good.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm doing great. So we're going to try to compete with sound here a little bit to make sure everybody didn't talk over everybody else. Let's see. And I think we lost somebody, but hopefully they'll be back. Okay, so we're going to start this roundtable off, and we're going to start talking about a couple of things that I've talked about previously in the last week or so. That is very important to people, and we're going to get everybody's opinion. There we go, Chad. And see where everybody stands on some of these issues, and see if we can come up with some resolutions and have some great critical thinking dialogue, as a couple of my friends like to say it. And so we're going to start with HB 3653. We'll start with Chad Graham. What's your opinion on this, and where your thought process is on this?
3653. That's the crime bill that just passed, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I am for a lot of the things that are in it. I think there's a lot of good things. I think we do need to have a discussion, and we do need to have criminal justice reform. I've been an advocate for that for the last 10 years. And that being said, there are some unintended consequences that come with that. In my opinion, I would say there are aspects of it that are a step in the right direction, that do things to protect both the officer and the citizen, i.e. body cams, things like that. What I will also say is, we are talking about, if we wanted to stop a dam from breaking, and the dam was breaking, this bill would be the equivalent of scooping up the water and throwing it back in with a shot glass. Our problems in our criminal justice system are severe, and it comes back to the legislators and the laws that we actually have on the books. My fear with this bill, even though I understand why cash bond is something that could be considered unfair, well, an unintended consequence of removing cash bail is that now everyone's just going to sit in jail, because that's what a judge is going to do. It's always tit for tat when you go back and forth between government and the people that are supposed to be their bosses. Government feels that they're the ruling class, that's not supposed to be the case. So I think the unintended consequence of this bill is not going to be good, because as in general, when government does something, it's not generally well thought out, and they're usually trying to correct a problem that they created in the first place, which you see in this bill. And, you know, you can go back and look at our criminal justice system, look at the fact that 97% of cases end in a plea bargain, thus not giving the fair trial guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution to the citizens, because they scare you. They scare you, so you wind up pleading out. And the big secret in that is if people demanded a trial jury when they were going, when that was presented to them, and they weren't terrified of going in front of a jury, and she understood what their actual right and obligation is to the citizen, there would be gridlock in our system. And I'm one that's okay with gridlock. So even though this is, I think, a lot of semi-decent things that are put into this bill, I don't think the intended consequence, or I don't think the intended purpose of the bill is I don't think we're going to see a great return on this bill. I think the problems go deeper than that. I think the average citizen needs to understand that if they get called for jury duty and they go in and they wind up being part of a jury, that they have an obligation, if somebody is on trial for a nonviolent crime or a crime that does not harm another person's private property, then it is the obligation of the jury to acquit and to hang. And I think that's how we get real criminal justice reform. The problem is that conversation never really gets off the table, because we're trained as a society to believe that government is God and we need to beg them for permission and their approval before we do anything. But the fact of the matter is, we have it all right here. It's all written in. If there is an unjust law, then we must understand that when we accept the responsibility to be on a jury trial, and must either hang or acquit.
Okay, awesome. So I kind of agree with that, but I want to hear some opposing views. And fortunately, we have the best opposing view here. Mark Flegel, what do you think about Chad's comment, or what do you care to add to that, take away, explain?
Well, I mean, I generally actually agree with him on most of what he's saying about, some of the stuff in there that's necessary. It's a step in the right direction. And I think I said that last week on the show. I think it's a good start to many bills and many reforms that need to come. He did mention the cash bail issue, and I strongly agree that I think it was a good thing that this was in the bill, and that this was the necessary step towards reforming the criminal justice system. It doesn't necessarily, the bail system only disproportionately affects, people with in poverty, or, minorities and many other people who can't pay the bail, and it makes the system unfair and unjust in that sense. So I think eliminating cash bail will eliminate some of the problems that we already have in the system, and I do strongly agree that I don't think it's happening until 2024, I believe, but when it does, I think it will only be a positive thing.
Okay. Now, Alex Walker, let me ask you a question. Mattoon is not a big town, is it? It's a pretty small town, fairly?
About 25,000 people.
Okay, so roughly. So it's not Peoria, that's for sure. No. Okay, so how does this affect Mattoon? And you're running for mayor, so how does this House Bill 3653, what do you run into when you talk to people about stuff like this? What do the citizens say? What are they telling you about this?
Well, have been an advocate for criminal justice reform for a long time. I think that the criminal justice system's broken, has been. I think some of the mandatory sentencing and the things that we go through, I think, is far-reaching. Number one, I think that the bill does have some good things. I mean, some of the diverts the low-level drug crimes into substance use programs and treatments. I've been saying that too. If you want to, fix the drug problem, one of the things you have to do is help people, make sure that they get the treatment they need, because we send them to prison or we send them to jail and then they get right back out. And what happens? It doesn't solve the problem. We're right back where we were. So I'm all for trying to get people treatment. But I also think there's concerns with the bill. Someone can come onto your home and the police necessarily, from what the bill reads, they have no right to arrest you. And so there's concerns with it, but I also think it does have some, I think it does have some good things in there that I've been pushing for quite some time.
Awesome. So I want to hear from Chaplain Ben Madigan, and the reason why is because his faith is stronger than probably anyone's I've met in a long time. And when it comes to faith in God and what's going on with this bill and what it's doing to our police officers and whatnot, Ben, how many times have you talked to people, whether it be in church or, your friends or family or people you ride bikes with? I keep saying abate or abate. I don't know which way to say it, but, in general, where does this stand? Do you think, where does it stand when it comes to faith and how you pray with these officers or these firefighters, or, get them to understand that despite the negatives or positive, the negatives in the bill, where does faith play into that?
Aimed toward education, Allison, which you were asking about. I see across our land a lot of, defunding police, defunding programs, the attacks on our police officers at these riots, totally ridiculous. I'm not saying every police officer is an angel. They're not. Any field you're in is not. There's bad apples everywhere. My wife and I personally thank God for our police. I believe God sets up these authority in our land. He set that up. There's got to be laws. There's got to be people executing authority on criminals. You can't give criminals more rights and authorities in liberty than the police officers who are trying to protect us as citizens. Somebody's
Right.
Somebody's in my backyard trespassing, and I call the police, and they come and they cannot remove or arrest that individual. That's totally ridiculous.
And it's scary too. It's very scary.
So I think it's I'm against most of it on this HB 3653.
Okay, and we're going to move to the next person. Sorry, I think it keeps cutting out. Definitely, Ben, I completely agree with you. Courtney, she is a mother, a wife, and a registered voter who cares deeply about her state and the individuals in it. And she just wants what we all want, peace and harmony, and for everybody to do the job they're supposed to do, including our governor. But so, Courtney, what do you think about this bill, and where do you stand as a parent, having law enforcement friends, or, where do you stand as a registered voter when it comes to bills that come across the table like this?
When I see this come across and they tell me that if somebody breaks into my house and it's me and my son sitting here, I'm supposed to just call the police, who are not going to be able to do anything. What is my recourse? I feel threatened. My life feels threatened. My son's life is threatened. I have a stranger breaking into my house. Can I take care of what the police can't?
And I do believe we have a stand your ground bill.
We
Yeah,
do.
stand your ground. But, and that kind of conflicts, because if you have stand your ground, but yet the police can't remove them, it's kind of a no-win situation, I think. So Teresa Rayborn, she's got some amazing bills and ideas and resolutions for things. So if we can pull Teresa up here, we'll ask her, what is your opinion on this bill, and where do you stand on it, and what is your resolution for it?
Well, first of all, most of it I do not agree with. There are always going to be a little bit of stuff that you agree with and a little bit that you don't. But for this one, it really seems to be tying the hands of our police officers and pretty much turning them into hall monitors, where they can come and they can ticket, but they can't remove someone. And I'm a mom, and you can probably see, like, right over here, I have 3 little ones, 3 daughters. So if my husband is at home and someone is on my property, again, just from a mother standpoint, that mother bear kicks in and you want to protect your own. But we have so many people that are pushing for more gun control and wanting to do away with our Second Amendment. Well, if we don't have our Second Amendment and our police can't do anything, then we're just sitting ducks for someone who wants to harm us. We need to be able to call on the police to handle what, frankly, as a citizen, I don't want to have to handle. I don't want to have to deal with that. I would rather be able to call the police and have them take care of it and secure my property rather than me have to secure it myself. So that's very tough. Now, I do have some criminal justice reform on my website, raybornforcongress.com, which lays out a lot of the reforms, but it's focused more on sentencing. So these are 2 different areas. One is this bill in particular. It deals with the police, like according to the arrest and prior to conviction, whereas mine is dealing with after conviction. So there's where I haven't really given a whole lot of thought into pre-conviction with arrest and stuff. I do think that we need more funding for our police so that we can afford more body cams and more training, maybe even training in non-lethal maneuvers that law enforcement can use to subdue a suspect that may be resisting without having to go to lethal force. I think we should give everyone the opportunity to try and reform. I believe in redemption and people being able to come back from being a criminal and restore their good standing in society. I think that our criminal justice system is actually based on that. But in the moment, as a mom and as a citizen, I can't stand by something that would cause the police to just ticket someone who's on my property and causing trouble and threatening me and threatening my family, and no one can do anything. I can't stand by that. If someone's on my property, remove them. Get them off my property.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to wrap this up with a final person, Kimberly Brooks. Her husband and her are very big on Second Amendment rights and stand your ground, and definitely big on family. So real quick, Kimberly, go ahead and tell us what your view on this bill is.
I actually don't agree with it. Yes, we need to fund the police more for more education, more training. But as far as the police, they're there to do their job. If they can't take anybody off your property, what are you going to do? My husband and I and our whole family are very much for gun rights. But keep in mind, in the state of Illinois, they keep asking for more gun control. In the state of Illinois, and able to get what you need to legally own it, you have to have an FOID. You have to go through background checks. Every time you buy a gun, you have to go through background checks. So I'm not sure what they're meaning by more. I do agree with Teresa. We need to get more money to the police. You know, they're taking money away from communities that can't afford the body cams, but yet telling them they have to have the body cams. So where are they supposed to come up with the money for it? Raise taxes? Well, we all know we don't want to have that. So there's a lot of this part of this bill that scares me with an up and coming young lady, but I don't know of any solution yet to this.
And that's what's scary, guys, is if we can't find solutions to things we don't like, then we need to come up with solutions somehow, some way, and kind of meet in the middle. It's not always going to be one way or the other. So that's important. So next topic we're going to go to, I want to talk a little bit about healthcare, because there's a big problem with that. And it's people that believe that the government funded what they have now, Obamacare, and let's see. So government run programs where there's no competition, there's no incentive to do it better, there's no cheaper or better services. So I kind of want to get everybody's take on what you think versus what kind of healthcare you agree with. And we'll start with Mark.
Well, first off, I would like to see, I believe just from a philosophical standpoint that healthcare is a right that everyone should have, and that it's really not, it's not really debatable with me whether, we should cut people out from having health insurance.
Right.
I generally don't agree with Medicare for all. I'm not a Medicare for all Democrat. I like the sort of the hybrid system that we currently have, given under certain circumstances. There just needs to be more. There's still room for growth within the system. I would like for the states itself to expand Medicare, and there's certain states around the United States that don't accept the proper amount of funding for Medicare, and that would help a lot. I would like to see more competition within the marketplace, meaning you could go to another state and shop around for a plan. I think that would be helpful because generally competition is better for these things. But I'm not gonna agree with some of my colleagues on the Democratic side that it should be a complete Medicare system entirely.
Absolutely, and I agree with you, Mark. I don't think it should be. I'm all for having a choice in that aspect. So, Alex, what do you think about healthcare, and what could make it better or change it in your eyes?
Simple. Keep government out of it. I think Obamacare was a failure. I honestly don't think anything that is government ran is ever a good idea. That's the reason why we got rid of the mandating people to take care, take Obamacare or whatever. I mean, we should be mandating problems. I have problems with mandates, especially when they come from the government. But I think that we need to get back to where we have to do a better job of taking care of people that do have, pre-existing conditions, which is like what the president was trying to do, even though we weren't able to get a bill done. But I think that, government ran healthcare isn't going to work. I mean, look at all the other countries of where, we do have government ran and it works, but I don't think it's going to work here. I mean, Obamacare proved that to us.
Absolutely. Chad.
Sorry, I had to unmute.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, so I have an interesting perspective. I'm a licensed health insurance professional, and that's what I do, and at least part of what I do. And I will tell you, every time somebody talks about Medicare for all or complete government takeover of healthcare, what I will say to them is, we already have an example of that, and you find me somebody that says that goes well. We know it is the VA. We can't run the VA. The VA is a complete disaster. We gave the government a very small window of, here, let's see what you can do. And as they always do, they fail miserably. When people say there's no safe nets, people need safety nets, I point to Easter seals and the Shriners and say, tell me how there's no safety nets again. Tell me how we can't get together without government force and do this again. Because I can guarantee you that Easter seals and the Shriners do a lot more than the VA. And they are a lot more effective. So we've gotten to a place with health insurance that doesn't even really make sense. We've got government trying to fix the problems that only government created. The problems were not there before government got involved, and they need to just walk away. Now, realistically, we know that's not going to happen. What do I believe? Government needs to get out of our way. That's what I believe. We need to have competition, strong competition. And I can give you examples of the difference between covered medical procedures and voluntary medical procedures. And when something is voluntary and not covered by insurance, you will see throughout the years the price of those surgeries, or whatever they are, they come down. If you're looking for an example, look at LASIK eye surgery in the past 20 years and the cost. When the doctor has to compete for patients, they'll trust me. When there's a will, there's a way to get the cost down. When government gets involved and they start to mandate things, government doesn't know what they're doing. And to be honest with you, the people that we elect are not smart people. I'm sorry, they're not. It's two completely different sets of skills to get elected to something and to actually lead. And those skills are very different. So our elected leaders are not smart people. They should not be entrusted with this responsibility. And the responsibility is your healthcare, my healthcare, and our family's healthcare. And they're not qualified.
Well, spoken the truth. Don't know that I can really disagree with that. So Ben Madigan, what's your take on this?
Probably the oldest person on the panel here.
And the wisest.
Well, there's you can debate that. I remember when the company you work for would have great insurance policies, for your family, like our last gentleman spoke of, our family insurance. I miss those. My wife retired from CAT, and they had great insurance, so now, but we lived through those times where you had your Optico, your health insurance, your just all around good insurance, whether it was Keystone, Komatsu, or whatever, they provided that. That was just part of America, overall. Our health care, or whatever you call it, health insurance needs a lot of help right now, I think. I'll tell you one thing I'm against, and that's us that don't believe in abortion should not be funding it with our tax dollars. We should not be funding sex change operations with our tax dollars. We're totally against that. Totally against that. I don't trust people that are in there now telling us what good health insurance is. Like our last gentleman said, I don't think most of them are too smart on that side. So anyway, those are my views, and I don't want to take a lot of time up for the next individual.
No, you're fine. Thank you. Okay, so Teresa.
Okay, well, this is something I could actually talk about for hours, so I'm going to try to do this really quickly. I agree with the previous two that a lot of times the people that are in Washington don't know, or in Springfield, don't know anything about healthcare or what it's like on the front lines. I was very disappointed with my own party in 2017 when they were trying to do an Obamacare repeal and replace, and we found out they really didn't have any idea. So considering I worked for Cigna Healthcare for 9 years and I processed medical claims, I knew a lot about the insurance industry, and I saw a lot over the years. So one day, I don't know how you want to call it, but I was really depressed about the whole situation because my family was struggling with high healthcare costs as far as insurance, not that we were using a lot. And I went to bed really upset and woke up the next day, and I could identify the major problems with healthcare and the solutions. And I started writing about that. And what came out of that was a diagnostic report and what I call the Freedom Health Plan. And it was later, about a year or two after that, or about a year after that, that I decided to run for Congress. I had already written other proposed bills that I was trying to get out there. So I didn't start off as a politician. I ran for office because I had ideas that needed to get out there. So there are some of us that do have some background in these areas, and I can't really go into it because there's other people. I don't want to monopolize the time, but going onto my website, raybornforcongress.com, up at the top, click on issues and go to the healthcare section, and you will see a diagnostic report, which details what's wrong with our healthcare system and why everything costs so much. And then my Freedom Health Plan, which actually will put more money back in your wallet, allow you to go to any provider, and it will bring the free market system into play so that the cost of healthcare overall is going to come down. I know a lot of people talk about lowering the cost of prescription drugs, but I think we should be lowering the price of everything. Office visits, x-rays, labs, everything needs to come down. It is outrageous what's being charged out there. And I think part of it, all of our problems with healthcare can go into one of two buckets. One is the insurance model, which is basically you paying someone for them to dictate what you can and cannot do with your own healthcare. And I think that decision should be between you and your doctor and no one else. Not an insurance company, not your employer, none of that. And then there's also this marriage between your healthcare and your employment. And we need to get away from that so people don't get trapped at a job that they hate and is a dead-end job, not going anywhere. And yet they're stuck there because they can't find better insurance at another company, and they don't want to sacrifice their insurance. So it takes that all apart. Can't go into too much of it, but definitely look into it because a lot of the problems everyone's talking about actually are solved with the Freedom Health Plan.
Amazing. And I've actually looked at this bill. I'm actually backing it as well, along with one of her other bills. So that's important. So I want to bring up another topic.
Hey, Allison, before we get in there, Thomas DeVore actually brought up a good point. Illinois doesn't have stand your ground laws, which that means in Illinois that if someone comes to your property, you have to use all reasonable force to evacuate the situation. And then you're allowed to use force, I believe, but but Illinois does not technically have, the stand your ground laws in place, right?
Well, thank you for clarifying that.
The attorney, so.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that. That's fine. That's even scarier now that we know that. Because with this bill, if there's no stand your ground law, and then we have intruders coming into our property, and there's nothing we can do about it.
You have to use all reasonable force to do anything to prevent it before. So, that's crazy. But.
Yeah, it is crazy. So we're going to talk about HB1, House Bill 1. I'm going to kind of give people a summary in case you don't know what it is. Most people on here will know. It addresses voter access, election integrity, election security, political spending, and the ethics for the three branches of the government. Specifically, the bill expands voter registration and voting access and limits removing voters from voter rolls. The bill provides for states to establish independent, nonpartisan redistricting commissions. The bill also sets forth provisions related to election security, including sharing intelligence information with state election officials, protecting the security of the voter rolls. So, and that's just kind of a small, I don't want to read the whole summary, but I had someone come to me today and say, this isn't good. And what this would mean is that what it does is it gives a problem with elections. And I want to know what your guys' opinion on is HB1. We'll start with, let's see, I guess, we'll go ahead and start with Chad, and then we'll go to Mark.
Well, I mean, this is a topic that I could really probably dig into for a really long time because I've been very politically active for the last decade, and I've been mildly politically active for the last 2. And one of the main things that I see in our system is ballot access laws directly are related to election law. I myself personally, since 2012, have been in court 4 times. Well, I should say I've been to court on 4 cases, probably in the excess of 20 actual times, hired multiple lawyers, both myself and the affiliated, my affiliated party has as well, sometimes on my behalf, some on others' behalves where I was involved. And this has been the root of my political activism, was to have freer and fairer elections, which were supposed to be guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution. They don't exist. Two private entities have hijacked our entire electoral system. They're called the RNC and the DNC. They've hijacked them. And now they play word salad games to try to benefit themselves. And what you see in this, I mean, you mentioned something, Allison, that there's something in there about independent councils for redistricting inside of the states. Well, that's already there. It's already there. The federal government gets involved. We just saw widespread fraud. We saw it. And I'll argue with anybody that wants to debate that with me, because what you have is it's very clear within the U.S. Constitution that the state legislators have the sole power to form their the way in which they do elections. They're the only ones that can make changes. And we saw most states, including the ones that had nothing to do with any cases that came out, where they had judges making decisions at will. And we were told there's nothing to see here. I don't know if it would have done anything to the outcome of the election. I can tell you that I'm probably the only person on that panel that has raised and spent well into 6 figures on fighting this for my own cases. I remember, and before anybody jumps on board and says, oh, he's just drinking Kool-Aid or following whatever, my campaign spent well into six figures in 2014, and it was against the Republican Party. So I guess it sounds good, but in short, do I have any faith that the federal government is going to do anything? No, they just turned a blind eye to clear and blatant and up in your face election fraud. Why do we want to trust these people to do anything else? What they're going to fight for free and fair elections? That's not what's on their agenda. This is our game. This is for the people to decide. And we have decided, and it was just ignored. So I don't care what side of the aisle you are on. It doesn't matter, because if the election results went the other direction, I would still be infuriated. I might be, I might cut a couple more jokes because, oh, well, the Republican was on the upper hand this time, not the Democrat, or the Democrats up here and the Republicans, wasn't able to steal it so much down there. But at the end of the day, we have litigated the living hell out of our electoral process. And it's really not that complicated of a situation. We have election day, you go, you vote, and you count them. And we can't even agree on how to do that. So why do we think that a giant bloated bill, I can only assume it's thousands of pages, is going to solve a problem that has only been created by case law precedents and giving the courts the reasons to ignore things when convenient for them to do so? That's my take.
Mark, do you have a response to that?
There's a lot there. First off, I don't know. I don't mean to go back at I know we were talking about the crime bill, and I know we're onto something different.
No, it's fine.
But if we can readdress that again, I'd like to at least have my input on some of the things that were said today.
Yes.
Okay, great. But I'll talk about the election bill. I generally agree with that. I mean, there is it seems like if you're the little guy in a lot of these situations when you're trying to get on the ballot, for instance, and you're up against, somebody has better lawyers or more access to paying better lawyers and a lot of lawyers that you're at a disadvantage running, which in its face is extremely unfair. We should allow everyone an equal chance to run, and it's just a game of getting people kicked off ballots by not having the right signatures. So there needs to be a level of equity within actually running for office, because I feel like good people miss out on the chance of getting in the ballot because of that. With regards to redistricting, I think gerrymandering in itself is an issue. We have every year, it's whatever state legislators in power here in Illinois. Obviously, it's always the Democrats, but and I think that, and I disagree with a lot of what goes on in terms of sort of this game and mapping to allow certain citizens to be left out of where they should be held accountable for in their own district. So. I don't know that much about I have to read the whole entire bill to really comment on it, the specifics of it. But if there's any, if it helps in the least bit, I guess it's a start. In terms of election fraud, I think we got in a dangerous game with this last election. I don't think there was really much evidence that there was election there. Obviously, there are cases of election fraud, but enough to swing the national vote is preposterous in my mind. I think every court has looked at it. There really isn't any evidence to indicate that there was election fraud, and I just think that at least if we're going to have that argument, we have to at least back it up with facts, and I just haven't seen any. That's
okay. So I wasn't trying to cut you off at all. And I wasn't the one that moved it. I can't hear him. So I don't know. I think we're running out of sound, or they're having a sound issue. Can we bring Mark back up, please? Okay.
You hear me now?
Yes. Sorry about that.
I don't know where I left off or where I got muted, but
You said that you didn't get muted. I've got my camera guy working on the camera, so I don't think he muted you. He just accidentally hit the button or something. So I wanted to make sure your voice is heard. That's the whole purpose of my show. The last thing you had said was if you're going to have an argument about election fraud, you want the proof. Does anybody on here want to answer to that to Mark with actual proof? Chad? Oh, Teresa? Okay, well, let's start with Teresa and then we'll move to Chad since we just got to Chad. So let's start with Teresa and then go to Chad.
I would first, there's a documentary that was put out by Mark Lindell. I forget the name of it now. It's on, I think I posted it on my Facebook page, but it's probably been taken down. I think it was Absolute Proof or something along those lines was the name of it. And they detail a lot of it. And there's been other videos that I've seen where they have gone through and detailed the evidence. I personally have just stumbled across people who were in my district in Chicago where they were given pre-marked ballots. So it was pre-marked for Biden, Durbin, and my opponent, Robin Kelly. So, but only those three races. Now, as we all know, in November of 2020, we had an amendment to our Constitution that was on our ballot. And that was the first thing on the ballot. That was not pre-marked. And no other race down ballot was marked, just those three. And so I reached out to some of these people and said, hey, are you willing to go on the record and sign an affidavit? And then I forwarded that information on to some of the attorneys. It's the things that I've been seeing and hearing are overwhelming. But yes, in a lot of ways there are instances, but when you're talking tens of thousands of, or even hundreds of thousands of ballots coming in a major dump, and only 1,000 or 2 went for Trump and all the rest went to Biden, that's statistically impossible. I've gone through Chicago, okay? And even Chicago, it was not like that. So that if it's not happening in Chicago, I'm pretty sure it's not happening in a lot of these other cities. So I would direct anyone to that documentary, Absolute Proof, because it does go through and list it. And what shocked me about that was that our votes were being sent over and tallied in other countries. And some of these countries, I would have never thought they're not big countries. Some of them are very small countries that we wouldn't think would ever be involved in our process. But the foreign interference and the fact that our votes are being counted in other countries was astounding to me.
Okay, Chad?
Yeah, there is, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. I actually believe there was a lot more fraud, and similar to what the last lady was talking about. But that's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, people that were not the state legislator made decisions and opened up a wormhole, and they do not have the authority to do it. Thus, every state that did that, every single mail-in ballot was illegal, and thus should not be counted. It's that simple. And when it comes down to it's really hard to write me off. And I want to make it clear. I'm not using this as an example. I am not using the 2020 election in a way, let me say it like this. I'm not using the 2020 election as saying that, oh my God, this was voter fraud. and I have proof because this is what I've done in my past. I'm saying everything I've done in my past built up to this point where it's undeniable that election laws were broken, and we're doing nothing about it, and we're sweeping it under the rug. That everything I've been fighting for in the last decade, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that I've spent, and to be fair, I respect and thank you for the sympathy to the Democratic gentleman there about it not being about ballot access. I only lost one time. I lost my first time when I didn't know what I was doing. I've beat both the Republicans and the Democrats every single time since then. And I don't intend to lose again, and I won't. Because it's a complicated issue. And unless you understand it, you don't understand it. And to say that there's no widespread voter fraud, I don't know. I don't know how widespread it was, but I will tell you there's one thing. There's one thing that happened that delegitimizes every single mail-in ballot in every single state that was in question. It's black and white. So we have a major problem with our elections. And shame on every libertarian that's watching right now that jumped on the bandwagon and said nothing to see here. And shame on every libertarian that jumped on the Trump bandwagon and said there's everything to see here and get mad. This is what we've been fighting for decades. For decades. And every one of you guys, pardon my French, but you shit the bed. And you let this one thing that is so obvious, there is no denying what the Constitution says. None, zero, none, no debate on this. It says this, and we did the opposite, and we turned a blind eye to it, and thus making this election completely illegitimate. Number one. Number two, what I do have to say to people is don't worry, guys, because it's way worse than you actually think. It's way worse.
Can I also follow up with that? It is way worse. And you don't know until you're actually in the process. I did not, if there's anything about my congressional run, is that it opened my eyes to all of the disgusting, vile things that are going on, not just with election irregularities and voting and all that. Now, I did want to mention that I agree it needs to be on one day and one day only. I think our voting locations need to have cameras. If we're talking about putting cameras on every police officer, we can certainly make sure there's cameras to ensure our election process. And I'm really leery about all this technology where who knows where it's going to be counted and can someone flip votes after you vote? I don't know about that. I'm not an IT person. But I think paper ballots are the best way to go. As far as the gerrymandering and redistricting, I actually do have a bill on my website about that. And I think we should have a commission that brings up 5 or 10 different maps that they want to do to redistrict, and then put that in front of the voters and let the voters vote on which map they want, rather than them telling us where we're going to land. Right now, we're in the middle of this realignment of the congressional districts, and I don't even know where the second district's going to end up being. We know that we're probably going to be losing a seat. So where's that seat? And where are those people going to be realigned? So I agree. And I also want to say to Mark, wow, you're doing a great job. And it takes a lot of guts to come in and talk with people that may have different opinions than you. And I congratulate you on that.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to talk with people with different views. And I think you guys are all coming from a good place. So I feel like we can have a good discussion. Can I say one more thing though? Sorry, I don't mean that.
Absolutely. No, you're fine.
Teresa, I do like your idea about the voting on the redistricting. I think that would be really beneficial, actually, instead of having a controlled house or senate of a state house decide. So I do like that. With regards to the Trump election, though, I know, and I hate to bring it up because I think we should move beyond it. I just don't. I understand there was probably certain pockets that there was issues, and no election's going to be completely 100% smooth. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, just by sheer numbers, 7 million votes, there's just not. It's not possible that it could have been swung. I just don't see it just by the numbers in that sense. And you know, multiple courts have heard it throughout the country. You can pinpoint one thing you saw, and yeah, it should be addressed the next election and stopped. But to say that would have swung the election to Trump, in my opinion, is just completely wrong. I don't think any voter fraud is okay, but just the fact that we have certain people, and I try to work with them on the other side, Republicans, who say they won't even start working with us because until the election's overturned, the results, that's a breaking point for them. I think we need to move beyond that, and I really think if we got off to a better foot, if Trump did admit that he lost the election, we can move forward. But right now, I don't see it with a lot of people, and it really bothers me.
If I may say something, Mark, I think that the problem is that we have about 75 million people who did vote for Trump who are questioning election integrity. So the question is, if we don't know what happened in 2020, how can we trust the elections moving forward? And that's where a lot of people are. And I think it's really important for everyone, especially considering in 2016, there were a lot of people on the left that were saying that Trump had, Russian collusion with, and that's how he won. So we have a lot of people in this country that no longer trust our elections, whether you think that there were problems in 2016 or 2020. We have a trust issue, and I think we really need to look into that. Now, I did go to law school. I did not finish, and I can tell you that looking at these cases, the vast majority of them were dismissed without even being allowed a court date. So they didn't even get a chance to, they had evidence and they weren't allowed to even present the evidence in court. They were shut down. It was like they locked the courthouse and said, you can't come in to present evidence because you haven't presented evidence. And that's not how it works. So they weren't even allowed to try and present that. And that's where a lot of people are getting hung up on. They just want a day in court to be able to have that evidence brought forward and decided on the merits. And whichever way it ends up going. But I think we have a huge trust issue with our election integrity on both sides. And that needs to be resolved. Otherwise, we're going to keep arguing about this year after year.
Chad?
Okay, what's important is I think what we're doing here right now. We are a group of people that are not elected, not part of government, and we're able to have a conversation, and we're able to find common ground. And I think this is very important. And thank you, Allison, for doing it. And yes, it makes perfect sense, Mark, as to why a bunch of Trump voters wouldn't just bow down and say, all right, this is the way it is. I mean, they did listen to 4 years of nonsense about Russia and other things. And, so, I mean, that's neither here nor there. No need to debate that back and forth. It's just the reality. And for somebody like me, I'm not shocked. Like I said, we haven't had fair elections in my entire life. So, and it goes back much further than that. You can look at Kennedy and who really won that one. And you can point to Richard Daley in Chicago, and that's pretty widely well accepted right now, even amongst Democrats, which I know Democrats. I'm friends with a lot of Democrats. As a matter of fact, they gave me figures when I ran for governor because they wanted to use me as a football, as a tool. So yeah, all of you union members, thank you for your 7 figures in 2014. Good use.
Okay, so I'm going to give the floor to Kimberly. I haven't had a chance to hear from her. Sorry about that. I got a lot of guests on. I'm enjoying all of you, and your opinions mean a great deal, because I think everybody, no matter who you are, should have a voice. So real quick, Kimberly, we'll go over the, we'll kind of backdate a little bit just with you, the HB 3653, your opinion on that, and then your opinion on voter fraud, I guess.
That's kind of an open deal for me. There should be a lot of there's a lot of people who don't trust the system. They've seen too much go wrong too many times. We need to have a standard procedure. And, Trump the other day when he was talking in CPAC, he talked about voter ID. He talked about signature verifications. He talked about, what happened in Pennsylvania shouldn't happen. But we need to sit down, both sides, and say, okay, how can we solve this? It's as simple. You walk in, you show your ID, you sign your paper, you vote, you walk out. You don't have any votes come in at 3:00 in the morning, 3:02 in the morning. Poll closes at 9:00. That's when they should close. Midnight, the ones that couldn't get their votes in, that were mailed in, let them be counted. But don't hold it up and all of a sudden at 3:00 in the morning, start shoving votes in that you have no idea where they came from. It's clearly written in the Constitution. Why can't both sides just follow it? They need to come to a compromise. People are not going to trust the election. This is how we've lost trust in a lot of politicians. Myself, if it wasn't for the fact I'm Allison's chief of staff, I have issues with politicians tell you what you want to hear. I want to know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. As a voter, we have the right to know. So how are we going to fix this? I want to know how we're going to fix this and what you're going to do to fix it. And then maybe we might get the trust back.
Absolutely. I want to give the floor to Alex Walker, give him a chance to talk a little bit more. What's your thoughts on everything we've discussed today, and especially the last part?
Well, I would say this. I do think that there was a lot of election fraud for sure. I don't know the amount or the intents of what it is. I mean, and I out of the two candidates, I obviously had to support President Trump. But at the end of the day, I think that we need to find out what happened. I think, Teresa brought it up in 2016. The Democrats got up and objected and did the same thing that the Republicans did. And, then they threw a stink about Republicans doing it this time, which is, hypocritical. But I think that we should investigate. But I also think that, hey, Joe Biden's the president. Whether he won or lost, he's still the president. And I think that we need to look ahead to 2024 and we have to make sure that the election, what happened doesn't happen again, but we need to look forward and focus on taking the White House back in 4 years.
Absolutely. Ben, you got anything to say?
Excuse me. Yeah, I definitely believe there was a lot of voter fraud. They had a lot of testimony after testimony that wanted to testify, and even the president's attorneys, the Supreme Court, I think they dropped the ball on investigating it and allowing it to be investigated. 75 million votes. I believe that the election was stolen. And then some of our other constituents here, signature verification. We need that. We need better security at the polls. We need to do away with the Dominion system. Definitely. Just do away with it. One day to vote. If you're absent, you're sick, you're military, you're out of the country, that's understandable, but get the job done in one day like we always do. Have somebody there policing what's going on. Get it done. and protect our constitutional rights that we have. Okay?
Absolutely. Courtney, would you like to end us? What do you think? What's going on in your head about this?
Oh boy, so much is swirling. There was so much proof of fraud. Pennsylvania broke the law. They broke the law. They went against the Constitution. They did not change that law the way they were supposed to. Legislation does that. Plain and simple. They know that, but they did it anyway, and there's no consequence for it. It was allowed to happen, and that never should have been allowed to happen. They have proof of how many people who voted who shouldn't have. And you also have the media interference as well. They have a poll now where they did what? 1,750, almost 1,800 Biden voters they polled. 1 in 6 said that they would not have voted for him had they known about his son, about Kamala Harris's most liberal voting record. If the media didn't run so much interference, that would have been a lot different as well. So I think that plays a part in it as well.
Absolutely. And the media has become
as well.
Yeah, and the media has become a big problem. Whether it's, I personally haven't dealt with this yet, and I think it's because I'm still really new. I've been out for a while. Every one of you, I think Mark is the only one because I just recently met him. But and maybe Alex too, I don't know. He's kind of heard about me before we met a little bit, so we kind of knew a little bit about each other. But
I worked for Tom Tarter. Well, I didn't work for him, but I helped Tom Tarter's campaign, and
right.
For 2 years ago, the last election, excuse me. And when Tom Tarter lost the election, Mark Curran contacted me and asked me if I would come work on his campaign, which I did. And I was a Southern Illinois coordinator for his campaign. And, Mark's a great guy. And I really appreciated the opportunity to work for him. And I got to meet a lot of people. And that's one of the reasons that I decided to run for mayor. Was because I seen that, a lot of change needs to be done here. My two opponents have been on part of government for years. And I think it's time for a change. We're $150 million in the hole. I'm in budget deficit with the pensions and all that. You have to ease the spending. I was at a budget meeting here just the other day where we're projected to be $500,000 in debt because we're spending more than what we're bringing in. And so that's one reason why I decided to run. But anyway, I want to say that, that's how I met Allison through Mark.
Yes, definitely. And I had ended up going to St. Charles for a Mark Curran event to kind of get my name out there. So back to what I was saying with the media has become a problem because either they aren't covering what they're supposed to cover and or they're giving more attention to one side or the other. And fortunately, I haven't incurred that yet, but it's because I'm new. I know it is. Once I become a threat, then it's probably going to be a problem. But for the meantime, the media has done me right. They've covered me perfectly. But like I said, I'm still new, even though I've been out for a while. I'm the underdog, definitely, for my race. So I want to thank all of you guys for coming. We have some great discussions as always. We try to come up with solutions. Sometimes we can't. But what's important is we have these discussions and we continue to have them and we continue to critically think. And we have people like Mark and Chad and Courtney and Alex and Kimberly and Ben and Teresa. We have all you guys. So it's every voice needs to matter. Every voice needs to count. And somehow, some way, we have to bring the state back. We need to bring back what is so great about Illinois, because I'm tired of hearing about how everybody wants to leave and they hate it when there's so much good to it. But because of all the filth and the garbage and the crap, it's just debris all over the place to where we can't see what's really there. We want to have our kids grow up and I want my grandson to be able to grow up, and I don't want him to have to go to school one day 4 years from now and have to defend his race or learn about things he shouldn't be learning about without parental permission. And we didn't really cover that, and we will at another later time. But that's a big deal. And as far as, you know, I'm so sick of this side and that side. We're all God's children, every last one of us. We're all Americans. We're all patriots, and we all believe in the Constitution. I know I'm not wrong with that.
May I say one more thing? Actually, I think wherever you go in this country or even in Illinois, there is far, far more that unites us as Americans and as Illinoisans than there is that divides us. We may disagree on political issues, but it's our humanity that unites us, and we all just want what's best for our children, our grandchildren, and our families and our communities. And anyone who has stepped up, I want to thank all of you for stepping up, because it's hard. It takes courage to step out and run for any office. So I want to just end it there for me anyways.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to end this, guys. I know everybody's got somewhere to be or family to see or whatnot, or maybe just kick back and watch TV. But I'm going to enjoy my evening. God bless each and every one of you for coming on my show. I love my guests so much. It means so much to me that you guys take the time out. I know I bug you guys to death every week about this, but it's important that we keep getting out there. I like the vocal, interaction, and I love problem solving. And I think at some point we'll get there, but we just got to understand that the ground of this is our Constitution. It is what we stand for and what we believe in, and most importantly, God. So if we can at least agree on that much, we've gained some ground. But God bless and good night. Next week, we have Dusty Ryan coming to a Citizen Watch. I'm excited to hear what he's got to say. And April 2nd, there is a Tribute to the Heroes Gala in Effingham, Illinois, from 4 to 9 p.m. It's going to be an amazing night. I know several of you guys are coming. You've got tickets. Everybody is welcome, definitely. Would love to have everybody there. If anybody knows someone who can lead in prayer, my normal guy, Ben, is unavailable, so I still haven't found anybody for that. But I always like to have prayer in the national anthem. We've got that. We've got Trey Taylor coming. So that is exciting. We've got a lot of surprises for some really cool recipients. The money is going towards Effingham Police Department and Brownstown Fire Department. These guys are going to be grown men balling when I get done with them. So I'm excited to see what's in store for the gala. I've got a lot of surprises up my sleeve, and Trey Taylor has some surprises up his sleeve. So without giving anything else away before I say it myself, have a great night, and I'll see some of you later on. Thank you.
Thanks.